I was 19, traveling from Washington to Georgia with my 4-month-old son. We were traveling alone since my husband had to fly a few days earlier to be back at work for the Army. It had been a very snowy November, and I had already changed my flight due to the weather. I had arrived at the airport to find that my flight had been delayed a couple hours. I was a little worried about the delay, but I did the math in my head. I would still have enough time to make my connecting flight in D.C. When I sat down, there was a tall, slender, dark-skinned woman sitting near me. I took my baby out of the stroller and I held him. I could feel her looking at me and my son, and then she introduced herself. We sat and we talked for quite a while. I told her how I had recently married my high school sweetheart and that I was traveling to Georgia with our son to stay for a couple of months until he was shipped off to Iraq. We talked about military life, and we could relate to one another because she had a brother who had been in the Marines and was recently deployed. She asked about my life, about my son, where I was from, and what my plans were when my husband left for war. We had been making small talk for probably over an hour when a voice came overhead announcing that we'd be boarding for the flight. I noticed she was digging around in her purse. I assumed it was to find her ticket. She got up and told me it was nice meeting me, and it was nice to pass the time. She told me to tell my husband thank you for his service. But as we were saying our goodbyes, she handed me $100 bill. I sat in shock for a moment, not knowing what to say or do, since I had never been shown such generosity by a stranger. I'll never forget what she said to me. She said, "When you get to your husband, take this money and go out on a date. You don't have much time together, and I want you to enjoy something." I boarded the plane in disbelief that she was so kind to do such a thing. I really appreciated it. We saved that $100 for over a month until a family member came to visit, and we were able to go out. I reached the airport in Washington, D.C., knowing I had to hurry to make the connecting flight to Savannah. I tried my best to get there fast, but I was unfamiliar with the airport. And I had a stroller in tow, so I could not dash to the airport like many travelers do. When I reached the gate, I could still see the plane out the huge glass windows, feeling hope that I had succeeded. There was an agent still at the desk. "Yes," I cheerfully screamed in my head, "I made it." But then he told me that the gates were closed and that I could not get on the plane. Despite my effort, I was literally 2 minutes too late. He directed me to a customer service desk to figure out when the next flight was. As I headed to the desk, the walkway became flooded with people in front of me. A whole plane full of people were headed to the same desk as me. The line quickly grew out of control. There were people everywhere. I waited in line to speak to a ticket agent for a very long time. I had no idea what was going to happen next. I waited for what felt like an eternity. Finally, it was my turn. I had been paying attention to the people in front of me and knew that they were giving them vouchers for a hotel room. Awesome, I thought. I'll get a hotel room and wait until morning for another flight if there isn't one tonight. I reached the desk, and the agent was a big man. He wore glasses and had a sloppy appearance to him. He wore his white company-provided t-shirt and name tag. I explained to him my situation, the weather delay, and missing my flight because of it, and then asked when I could get to Georgia. Unfortunately, the next flight wasn't until the next day. I asked him about getting a hotel voucher like everyone else. He refused to give me one. He explained to me that the hotel rooms were only for the people on the other flight, which got canceled at the last minute. They refused to help with accommodations for the night, despite my pleading. Defeated, I walked away, my mind reeling with what to do next. After calls to loved ones, assuring me everything would be okay, and feeling crushed, I found a quiet place to settle down for the night. There was only one option for me. I had to stay the night in the airport. I had considered using the $100 to go get a hotel room, but I wanted to keep my promise to the lady who gifted it to me and use it for a special night out. I remember sitting there listening to this machine go up and down the middle of the airport aisle. It was waxing the floor. As it very slowly traveled up and down, back and forth, it made a loud humming noise, and the stench of wax was not very pleasant. The people started to decrease around me, and soon enough, I sat there alone in a deserted and dimly lit terminal, just me, my baby, and the buffer machine. Just as I was coming to terms with me sleeping in the airport for the first and hopefully the last time in my life, a man and a woman approached me. I remembered seeing them in front of me at the customer service desk. I don't normally feel comfortable when strangers approach me, but something about them made it feel okay. They seemed genuinely concerned for me. They told me that they had overheard my conversation at the desk and felt bad about my situation. They explained to me that they were traveling together for work. They were supposed to be on the other flight that had gotten canceled. They had both received a hotel room from the airline. They decided together to find me and offer me one of their hotel rooms. They told me that they were willing to share one of the rooms and that I could take the other. She told me she couldn't bear the thought of me sleeping in the airport with my tiny baby while they were cozy in a hotel room for the night. She said that they had already called for a taxi and that I could ride along with them. Almost in tears, I knew that they wouldn't take no for an answer. I grabbed my things and followed them out of the airport. As I was walking out, I was stunned with such kindness that they had showed me. As we got to the hotel, it was fairly late. We checked in and headed to our rooms. We said goodbyes in the hallway in front of the elevator. Exhausted, I went to my room, put my baby to sleep, and prayed that the next day was going to be easier. But then again, who could complain when I met the three most generous and caring people one could in the middle of two different airports on opposite sides of the country? I wanted to share this story with you because it had made such an impact on my life. There is a saying, be kind to everyone you meet, for they are fighting a battle you know nothing about. These people may not remember what they did for me that day, but I will always remember them and their kindness. One day I hope to be able to give back in big ways like they did for me, and I want to be able to pay it forward. But for now, small gestures, lots of smiles, and being kind to everyone will have to do.